Hello there and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. I'm your host, Vidas Pinkevičius. Welcome to Secrets of Organ Playing podcast number 73. This is Sunday, December 18, 2016, and today's guest is Dr. Jeannine Jordan, who is a champion of the organ and its music. She has traveled throughout the US and the world promoting and sharing organ music through her innovative concerts. As a professional organist, she enjoys a varied career. Besides concertizing and recording, Jeannine has held university teaching positions and has served in a variety of positions in church music ministry. She is also the president and founder of ProMotion Music, a company celebrating the world of the organ. Dr. Jordan was awarded the Doctor of Musical Arts degree in organ performance and music history from the University of Oregon, where early American organist was the subject of her dissertation. The study led to further research and collaboration with media artist, her husband David Jordan, to create From Sea to Shining Sea. David Jordan, a skilled pianist with a Master of Music degree in composition from Ball State University, is also a media artist, whether creating the visual portions of the ProMotion Music concert multimedia events, reimagining photographs. His work inspires and mesmerizes its viewers. His work guides you through the programs with images, videos, and live cameras, following Jeannine and her incredible expertise on the organ. He helps the audience experience the story in the moment, hearing the music, seeing the images, and simultaneously feeling the pulse of the space in which the image existed. His multimedia approach is simply an extension of what he likes to experience every day of his life, an awareness of everything going on around him in the moment. The Jordans are the creators and performers of the live organ and multimedia concert events Bach and Sons, celebrating the life and times of Johann Sebastian Bach and his family, From Sea to Shining Sea, the story of the organ and its music in the colonies and new United States, and Around the World in 80 Minutes, featuring global repertoire by native composers. In this conversation, we will find out everything about Jeannine and David's multimedia organ concerts. Let's go to the show. So, Jeannine, I'm so delighted we're doing this conversation. I was following your work online for quite a few years now, and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about those things that you do, those multimedia organ demonstrations and variety of them right now, right? You're such a creative person and such a generous individual, and I'm so happy that we're meeting now online, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to meet you finally. I've watched your work online as well, and so this is a great time to share ideas and learn from you as well.
Excellent. Our listeners from all over the world will be very, very curious to know how you first fell in love with the organ. Do you remember the story?
Oh, yes, I do. In fact, since Christmas is coming up, it has to do with Christmas. As a child, as a 6-year-old child, I wrote a letter to Santa Claus, which requested that I not only get a doll and some dishes, but an organ as well. So I have been wanting an organ in my home since I was 6 years old.
Wow, that's quite a story. Let's back up a little bit, because I imagine not every child at 6 years old of age, right, would want from a Santa a pipe organ, right? What sparked this initial excitement for the organ with you, Jeannine?
Well, I belong to a church in a very small town in western Kansas. For your international listeners, that's right in the middle of the United States, pretty remote area. But our church had a very big pipe organ, and we had a wonderful organist there. And I could go up after the service and stand at this little gate. The organ was kind of in a gated area, and watch Mrs. Ellington play the organ. And I just fell in love with it right then. And ever since then, learning to play the organ, and then as I became an adult, sharing the organ with as many people around the world as I could, has been my passion and continues to be.
I see, Jeannine. So exciting. At 6 years old, you were introduced to this grand instrument, right? Did you see the insides of it? Maybe bellows, maybe action, the pipe work, or just the keyboards?
I never saw the inside of a pipe organ for many, many years, even though this one, I could have. But no one ever introduced me to the workings of a pipe organ until probably I was in high school. So it was just the keyboards. It was a 3-manual instrument, and the pipe display was magnificent, I thought, as a youngster. And actually, I went back there many, many years later and played a couple of concerts, and it's a very fine instrument. So it was just something that I was introduced to this instrument as a child, and then this piano teacher, Mrs. Ellington, when I was in 4th grade, she said, "Your legs are long enough. You should think about taking up the organ, learning to play it, because you can make money. You can make money playing the organ. You can have a church job, and you can support yourself to go to college. And so you should take up the organ." This is as a 4th grader. So by the time I was in 6th grade, I started playing the organ thanks to her, and never kind of left piano in the background after that. And that became my life's passion, to play the organ.
Amazing story, Jeannine. Just imagine what would have happened if somebody really would have shown you the insides of the pipe organ that early, right? Maybe you would have become an organ builder, right?
Maybe I would have.
Yeah.
And I'm still more interested in playing it than how an organ works. I now know all of that, and I'm curious about, especially pipe organs and trackers, because I had a tracker built for my home at one point. So I understand how they work, but still, I'm more interested in the sounds they create and the music I can create using those sounds. So, but it would have been interesting had I been a child and seen the workings, whether I would have gone off into that organ building path.
Did you play piano also at that time?
Yes, I played piano all through college. I had a double major, piano and organ, but organ was my instrument. So once I finished college, though, and went to graduate school, organ was the primary instrument. And I still play and teach piano, but I'm an organist, not a pianist.
Oh, Jeannine, tell us, what was your first organ piece that you played? Do you remember?
My first organ piece, I think, was the little C major prelude and fugue. That was...
this is difficult piece for the beginner, right?
Yeah,
a lot of, especially the fugue.
I had a classically trained organ teacher, and she started off, because I had enough keyboard facility. The keyboard part wasn't difficult, and that prelude anyway uses just a few pedal notes. So probably it was the G minor, actually, of the little 8 preludes.
G minor is easy enough, especially the prelude.
Right, just the prelude.
The fugue is a little more advanced, but very good. Very good. I like especially this entire collection, because it sort of develops your technique and musicianships. It's very pedagogical, right?
Very. I use them a lot because they're shorter. They give you a microcosm, or give that student a microcosm of Bach's compositional style. And it's easy for them to, instead of, tackling one of the great preludes and fugues, where, to learn one of those long pieces is daunting for a novice organist. But to learn these little 8 preludes and fugues, they've learned a different style of compositional technique through all of them. And then they can graduate to the bigger pieces.
And Jeannine, was it challenging for you to start playing those pieces, or was it, not so much straightforward? Because of course you were a pianist at the time too, so.
Right. No, it wasn't. I don't remember it as daunting. Mm-hmm. I can still remember riding my bike and thinking about how to make the trill a measured trill in some of those pieces, and I can still remember that pattern of pedaling the bike and da 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 da, how to make my fingers move in that trill. So there are lots of great, like you say, they're great pedagogical pieces. They were great pieces for me to learn first, but the other thing I also learned immediately to play was hymns, because I started playing for church as soon as I started playing the organ. I don't know about in your country, but here, anytime you can find somebody who wants to play and can play hymns, you pretty much are called to a church job.
Yeah, it's very good skill to have, right? To mm-hmm. say read the hymns in 4 parts, even with pedals, right. If you can. Then you are basically qualified to start playing the next Sunday, basically. At least to begin with, right? Of course, you need right. prelude and postlude, but mm-hmm. not necessarily at first, right?
Right. So the hymn playing was the important thing, but I also had grown up in that church or in a church, and I'd been playing hymns on the piano since I can remember, and so to transfer again to the organ was a natural thing to do, mm-hmm. and I don't remember it ever as being difficult, just something I wanted to do and loved doing.
Who were your greatest mentors, Jeannine, at that time, after your first piano teacher?
Well, it was probably my second organ teacher, and she was the organ instructor at Kansas State University, Marion Pelton. Mm-hmm. And she's been my inspiration since that time. She's probably the biggest inspiration, because she was so creative in her teaching. She wanted me to think about more than the black dots on the page, that there was so much to it, and to create a picture when I played this music, to not just play notes, mm-hmm. but to present a picture, present a story to your listeners.
Oh, you mentioned the word story, and it connects you to your entire work you're doing today, right? You're doing storytelling right. events right. today, and
everything is about a story.
Yeah, uh-huh. That's where it started, right?
That's where it started with Miss Pelton, and she was also a photographer, so she would often set up pictures that she had taken on the organ music desk, and we would talk about the picture, the visual, and how that might relate. And she loved going to Europe and taking pictures of European cathedrals and organs. Mm-hmm. So even way before I'd ever been to Europe to see any of these great instruments, I had those pictures in my mind that Bach played this organ and it would sound like this. I never knew what the sound would be until, recordings and being able to actually go play them. But I had the visual. I knew what they were. Yeah. Since I started organ lessons, basically. So.
A picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
Or 1,000 notes.
Or notes, yeah. So yeah, whenever I think of you and your multimedia presentations, I always think that you are such a great communicator, right? You're not only playing the music, right, and the notes, right. which is beautiful in itself, but it's not mm-hmm. enough sometimes, right? You mix with visuals and with storytelling so that people would appreciate and get deeper and deeper into what you're doing. So that's where it all started, your curiosity with storytelling, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. And then the second teacher, who was also very much like Miss Pelton, was Guy Beauvais, and you probably know of Guy Beauvais. I studied with Guy for a couple of years working on my doctorate degree. He was in residence at the University of Oregon. And he, too, is a storyteller and one who wants to get beyond the notes. And I still have the music I studied with him, where he drew little cartoon figures on my music to help me remember to tell a story and not just play the black dots. So, and as you know, Guy is quite eccentric and exciting and very, he captures your attention when you work with him, but he's also a stickler with detail and performance practice. So got a lot when I studied with Guy. So probably Miss Pelton, and then Guy Beauvais in later years was a great mentor.
Amazing. Guy Beauvais was in Vilnius, in my town, and maybe 8 years ago played a magnificent recital on the largest pipe organ in Lithuania where I work, St. John's Church. The church was full packed, and that was probably the only time that the church was packed during the organ concert. Actually, the first time. The second time was during a rock concert that I played myself with a rock band. But the first time was Guy Beauvais. Yeah.
Well, Guy is a fascinating individual and a fabulous player.
Yeah.
So I can imagine it was packed to hear him.
And very generous person too. He was a guest on this podcast too a number of months ago.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Well, great.
We talked about his life story as well. Amazing.
Yeah, he has a lot of life stories.
Yes. Yeah, amazing. So Jeannine, how did you become interested into creating those multimedia events yourself? Of course, you said there was an inspiration from your mentors and the storytelling, but how did it all started and you thought, this idea might work, right? In a regular concert, I could introduce the slides and storytelling, but at first it was a very new and novel thing, right? So,
yes.
Can you tell us about the background?
Well, it's still a very new and novel thing. People are still pretty much in a mold or a box, shall we say, about what an organ concert should be. It should be the performer coming out and playing and maybe speaking a little with some program notes. But this came about actually with Guy. I did my doctoral study and dissertation on early American organists and organ building and organs of the time. So I had all of these stories. I actually did research to find the stories of the people who were playing the instruments in early America. And then I was asked by the American Guild of Organists for a regional convention to present a program on organ and using media. In my part of the world, I'm kind of known as somebody who will go outside the box and do something a little different. So they asked me to do that, and I signed the contract not knowing what I was going to do. And my husband was starting to study media at the same time and how to use media in presentation. So he was doing some schooling and coaching in that area. So I thought, in 10 months, I've got to come up with a concert that uses media. So the two of us started working together, and I started with my dissertation and all of the stories I had about early American organists and the music I had discovered, which not a lot of people play the early American organ music. And that became our first concert. So it was thanks to the AGO saying, Jeannine, would you do this concert? And I just said yes without knowing what I would do, and then had to get creative. And it was very exciting to put together. It took us that full 10, 12 months to put it together because I had a lot of ideas, but again, nobody had ever done it. Mm-hmm. And it's just progressed from there and gotten far more sophisticated as we've gone along. We started out just with more like a PowerPoint, but it was integrated with my playing and talking. But now we have 5, 6 cameras on me. And so we have on the pedal board, on the keyboards from above, and on me as the narrator. And then David integrates all of that with these incredible visual images to take you to early America or to Bach's land, area or around the world, like our new program is going to do.
Yeah. Well, Jeannine, it's such a groundbreaking work you're doing, right? You're not only playing the best of the organ repertoire, but you're presenting in a completely mind-blowing way. It's like a movie, right? People are experiencing you from 6 different angles, plus pictures, visuals, stunning images. I think this kind of experiences you are providing for people will last a lifetime, don't you think?
Well, that's my passion. That's my goal. That it's something that hopefully will last a lifetime, but will also get people to come back and hear another organ concert. To go look at an organ, see if the organist will take them up into the chambers, to create some kind of excitement for the organ in a different way. We need a different way, and people are so visual in today's world. They really need to have something that brings them to an organ concert. So
exactly. For a specialized audience, let's say organists during a AGO convention or a conference, they would sit still and focused and listen to, I don't know, very difficult advanced music like Messiaen, very easily, right? Because they came there for a reason. But for an individual who maybe is listening to the organ sounds for the first time, what you're doing is really a curiosity starter, right? You're just introducing them to the enormous and very old and broad world of the pipe organ, right? 7 centuries old or more of the repertoire itself, at least. So after the event, this person who maybe with ignited curiosity will start looking up then some of the names you played, right? And will start discovering entire new world.
That's what I hope, yes. And I hope, and it's amazing how many organists themselves are discovering entire new worlds too. It's interesting with our Bach and Son show. Of course, all of us organists have played Bach and Bach and Bach. But a lot of organists come up to me afterwards and say, for the first time, I understand Bach as a person, as a man, as a family man, as somebody who had trials, tribulations, and yet created this incredible music. And so they are blown away by that aspect of the show and then go, I really should look at my music in a different way. When I think of Bach in Weimar, and he was composing, under duress, the liturgical year. Oh, how about that? It sheds new light on all those notes we've played for all those years. So it's interesting, the organist's reaction, as well as those who are brand new to the organ.
Or, for example, when Bach was traveling, right, with his count and came back to his town, his first wife was buried, right? She died for unknown reasons. It was a heartbreaking, probably, experience for him, but he didn't. He survived and he moved on and still kept creating. It's a great inspiration for anybody who experiences such a tragedy and loss, right?
And he had so many tragedies and losses, to lose 9 children also, plus the wife. And we do have that particular moment in the show where I tell that story from the perspective of his daughter, the loss of her mother and her father coming home to the wife being the dead or has died and has been buried. So yeah, we tell that story. It's a very somber, very moving part of the show. And in fact, we did the show in Dornheim, Germany at the Bach Wedding Church, St. Bartholomew. And they have a Bach scholar who has been instrumental in renewing that little church and making it available for the public. And he told me afterward, with tears, this very German man, very stout, sturdy man, and he said, he was one who said, I also now understand Bach as a man, as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So here, as a great scholar, I was very nervous about playing in front of him, in fact, and because he knows so much about Bach. And yet he came up with that comment as well.
Jeannine, I like the way you change angle and perspective and start talking from the daughter's point of view during the show. It's like reading a good book, right? Basically, sometimes authors change points of view regularly and on purpose. Are you a writer yourself too, Jeannine?
Well, I have written down stories of my life as an organist, and it's a little book called On the Heels of an Organist, and they're just short page or 2-page anecdotes about various funny, sometimes poignant, sometimes very trying moments in the life of an organist. So that's the only writing I've done, except for my newsletters, my blogs, all of the things that we write to help people understand what we're trying to do and about our passion.
Well, that's exactly the point. You cannot be a good storyteller, right? Unless you think what would move people, right? What would change them? What would help them understand what you're trying to achieve here. And you are doing such a terrific job, Jeannine.
No, well, thank you very much.
So, Jeannine, how are children reacting to your demonstrations and multimedia events? Are you doing, for example, something for school children or even smaller audiences?
We have not been able to do that at this point. But we have had children as young as 4 years old in attending our shows, and they have been mesmerized because it's visual.
Yeah.
They see me on the screen talking to them as a character, and then they hear this great music. But it's not just that they're hearing the music from a static organist up front or in the balcony. But David has the cameras which show my feet and hands, and that, for most people, seeing an organist's feet is what they comment on most. And it's amazing how many people who have attended this church where we're performing for 30 years, say, come up to me afterwards and say, does our organist use her feet? They don't know. They don't know what their own organist does every Sunday. And the work of an organist, and they're fascinated by it. And so children especially are fascinated by all of the visual, unlike just attending an hour and a half organ concert where they can't see anything, can't see any movement. It's the visual part, I think, that captures the attention of the young people.
Yeah, and sometimes for events like that, we can even contact music teachers in schools, right? To get them interested in bringing entire group of children, a class, right, for a special presentation like this. We've done that in Lithuania quite successfully for various ages of people, starting from kindergartners basically up to teenagers and older. And of course you accommodate and adjust your content and your storytelling delivery, because kindergartners will want or wait for one thing to do, or teenagers will be fascinated by another thing, but that's possible too.
Right. Well, I have very successfully worked with the local piano teachers guilds at a couple of concerts with the Bach show. And they've had their students work on Bach repertoire prior to the concert. They've had them do research. And then one group made big posters about Bach, which they were then displayed in the narthex of the church. And following then they were handing out programs and whatnot. But afterwards, then they played their Bach pieces at the reception following. So we have had that experience at a couple of our venues to bring in kids. And that's been great. I wish, more of our concert hosts would would take that on and actually make that happen. But,
exactly. So Jeannine, when you play those events, do you get feedback like, "Oh, I didn't know our organ could play like that"? Those kind of sound all the time, right? Probably
all the time. Yeah, I think of that as a church organist myself. Am I on every Sunday just using pistons 1 through 8, or am I being creative with my own congregation? I think sometimes as church organists we get kind of set in a rut and we forget to use all those beautiful sounds our instruments do have. And so when you come in as a concert organist, you don't know what their church organist has been doing. So you set up everything. You know, I always try to use every sound on the instrument somehow, if it's usable. And often you get exactly that comment. "Oh, I've never heard our organ sound like that," or "Oh, I didn't know that sound was on there."
It's like an orchestra, right? Basically, especially if you play transcriptions, for example, from orchestral pieces. I and my wife Aushra, we play for 4 hands, and transcriptions then become much easier to achieve. So then, in one particular church, I remember it was a village church, very tiny wooden church in Lithuania. I remember an elderly woman came up to us and said, "Oh, it was like a symphony orchestra. I never knew our little village organ can do these things." So we look for those experiences too.
Yes, Look for ways to show that organ in a new way for that community, for that church, or for the community as a whole. That's what I want. People to come back and hear it again.
You know what? Another thing what such creative multimedia events can do in the future, in the long run, besides sparking more interest into organ music, maybe renewed interest into the pipe organ in general for that church, for example, if it needs refurbishing or restoration. This kind of congregation which heard this event became so interested and passionate that maybe in the long run they would start advocating for the impending renovation of the organ. And that might happened on one occasion in Lithuania where we played. I just also found out that one wooden village church organ got restored, and I don't know, was it because of our demonstration or not, which was called Meet the King of Instruments, of course, but I like to think maybe it was it played a small part in that, you know.
I'm sure you did. To have people come meet the instrument, because many people have never seen the instrument up close, have no idea what their church organ even is or what it could sound like. So I'm sure your concert surely did spark an interest in someone's mind to get it restored, to help make it even better.
Yes. So Jeannine, what's your favorite I don't know, multimedia event that you're doing? You're doing 3 right now,
right.
Bach and Sons, from C to C, right? And then around the world in 80 minutes, right? And which one is your favorite, Jeannine, today? It's a stupid question. It's a stupid question. It's like asking about your kid, right? Which one is your favorite?
Which kid is your favorite? Yeah. The one I'm playing at the moment is my favorite, right?
Yeah.
The music I'm playing at the moment. I'm passionate about the American music because organists do not know it. And that's something that I love to share. That early American music, because I found a lot of it. But then who can't be passionate about Bach? I mean, the music there is so... I try to start the Bach show with the D minor toccata, just because those who have never been to an organ concert may have heard that piece somewhere in their consciousness. But then I also end with the St. Anne Fugue. So it kind of builds to that great piece at the end. That is probably my all-time favorite piece in all the repertoire I play is the St. Anne Fugue by Bach.
Oh, the triple fugue, right?
The triple fugue, right. Mm-hmm. I love that.
And very challenging to play, but probably unforgettable experience to listen to.
Right. And then there's the new show, Around the World in 80 Minutes. I have had so much fun getting the repertoire together for that show. I had composers from Australia and New Zealand, and who sent pieces to me, and I'm trying to do only music that is by a composer from a particular country composing on an indigenous folk song or hymn. And so I don't want a composer from Brazil, say, composing a prelude and fugue. No, unless that happens to be based on a folk tune.
Yeah.
So it's been very interesting to come up with the music, and I have found some incredibly different music than I was expecting. And it's taken me out of my box, and I'm exploring different sounds, like a Lebanese piece on Lebanese folk songs by Naji Hakim. Now that's, I think that one's really becoming a favorite of that show because, again, the rhythms and the scale patterns that it's based on are so different to my ears than what I'm playing at present. And then the piece from Australia is based on a folk tune, and it's a setting by Robert Ampt, who is a Sydney Town Hall organist.
I see.
And the piece has a great story. It's a storyline about, it's a folk melody that comes from World War II about a pub that ran out of beer. So again, it's out of the church consciousness and into, something totally different for me. So this new show is quite exciting, and I'm getting all the notes in my fingers. Our first show is January 28th for a West Coast introduction, and then our world premiere is April 26th in Ohio, which again is in the middle of the United States.
Yeah.
So,
and how many pieces are in this program around the world so far?
So far, 17. I had to ask David. Yeah, 17 pieces at the moment.
So every continent is represented probably, right?
Yes, except for Antarctica. Yes. 6 of the 7 continents are represented. And we start and we go to England, and then we have several stops in Europe. We go to Lagos, Nigeria. Then we go to Lebanon and Israel. Then to Taiwan, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Brazil, and then we end back in the United States with a setting by George Shearing, who is a jazz composer of Amazing Grace, just because that transcends, that's pretty much worldwide tune people know. And then I end with America, which is an American tune, but yet it's the tune for about 6 or 8 national anthems around the world, which I didn't know until I started the research. So that's where we visit at the moment. And David's visuals are incredible, taking you there on very fast ways of transportation. But once he gets to that country, all of like in Mexico, the tune is actually La Bamba, which is a very famous dance tune. And a great organ arrangement of La Bamba. And so he's got the actual peasant pictures and videos of the peasants doing this dance. And so takes you right there. It's going to be very exciting, and we're working hard to get that January 28th premiere under our fingers.
Right. It's of course challenging to haven't been studied and performed, across the globe, this particular program, right? And to feel this excitement of the premiere coming up, right?
Yeah.
Whereas your Bach and Sons program, for example, you probably can do this in the middle of the night, right?
Yes. Yeah, we probably can do either of the first 2 shows. Yeah. Yeah, those are really comfortable, and yet we're constantly looking to add to or change those in ways to make them better. Because over the 10 years we've been doing these shows, technology for David has changed dramatically. And so, and we have added cameras and added so much to the visual portion of the show. My portion of the first two shows, the music's remained the same. What's exciting for me is, of course, like you, playing a different instrument and using all the colors of the instrument. The story remains the same. It's just, hopefully I'm getting better at telling the story. So, but this new one, yeah, we're right on the edge of getting it all put together.
Since technology is so directly connected with creativity today, right? And it sometimes takes only the click of one button, basically. You don't even need to be an engineer to understand how it works. Here's an idea for David, for example. Have you tried to do a live broadcast of your event?
We are working on it.
Yeah,
and if you have any ideas to help us, by all means, that's what would be the next step in what we're doing.
Because not only listeners in the room would be able to join in, right? But also from across the globe. Of course, you would need to announce it some way on your blog or on Facebook or somewhere else that on January something, right? You will be presenting it live, right? And but then it's very exciting to see people join in from Brazil, from Europe, from Canada, from Australia, and there are several ways to do this. Perhaps the most popular right now is Periscope, owned by Twitter. Periscope. Yeah, Periscope, owned by Twitter, and the way it works. You broadcast it through your phone, basically, through your phone. Of course, the data usage would be enormous on a 90-minute event, right? But if you have a Wi-Fi in that area, then it will be okay. And you have to have some kind of unlimited internet, high-speed internet to work that, because you want for people to not only see things but hear well enough so that you understand. But you know what is exciting? To see if for example David or somebody else is sitting and filming this thing, and you can even see how many people are joining in, because when one person sees this on their feed on Twitter, because it broadcasted directly to Twitter, then their friends are also seeing the same feed, and it's a viral effect. Pretty soon tens of thousands of people can join in, basically.
Wonderful.
Yeah, if it's exciting enough visually, and you are visually very excited. So I think it's very possible, but you have to have, I think, unlimited Wi-Fi at that area. And if you are performing in let's say a remote area or a very enclosed area like a cathedral, wooden like walls, right? Maybe internet might not work so well there, but it's worth investigating the possibilities.
Yes, it is. Thank you. We will look into that, and maybe, when we're not when you're recording for your podcast, maybe I could call you and we could talk again.
Sure, of course. I'll be glad to help you. And another is Facebook, of course. Live is doing live things too. On Facebook,
Facebook's doing live as well.
Yeah, you can.
I have seen a couple of Facebook Live.
And YouTube too, I think, has live feed too. YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook, I think the biggest three are right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yes, of course, that would be what we'd like to do, in the future as we build on these show ideas, is be able to get them out. And we could even do the live presentation from our studio, which it wouldn't depend on a church with who knows what kind of connection. And so lots of things to think about, as always.
All it takes is idea, right? And you can go this way or another way. But if you have an idea, which you have many ideas, right, Jeannine and David? Both of you probably
we just need more time.
Time is such a thing that we don't have enough probably in these days.
Right.
So such a pleasure to talk to you, Jeannine, today. I wish you all the creative excitement that you are going to have while you preparing your new premiere of Around the World in 80 minutes, not days, but minutes.
80 minutes, yes. And that's the name of the website as well.
Yes.
www.aroundtheworldin80minutes.org.
So can you list, of course, the other websites and other links that our listeners could find you and your work online?
There's Bach & Sons, which is www.bach, B-A-C-H, and spell out and sons.com. And the other is www.from-sea-to-shining-sea.net.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Those are
I'll make sure I'll include those links into the description of this conversation too, so that people who are listening to the show through the website could literally click on the links and go to the website to check out.
That'd be great.
Thank you so much, Jeannine, for being such a generous person, for sharing ideas that transcend boundaries of countries, religions, styles and nationalities, and even time periods, right? People around the world will be, not only impressed and fascinated, but deeply moved by your performances, by your and David collaboration. So thank you again, and I wish you all the creativity for the next year, and I hope to get to know you even more next time when you have something new coming up next year.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful to meet you and be part of the podcast. I appreciate it.
If you liked this conversation, I encourage you to visit my blog Secrets of Organ Playing at organduo.lt, where you will find lots of insights, practical advice and training for every area of organ playing. You can subscribe to this blog for free to get your daily dose of inspiration and to be the first to know when any of my future podcasts roll out. I hope to help you reach your dreams in organ playing. I'm Vidas Pinkevičius. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you online really soon.